Okay. Okay, good afternoon po sa lahat. Welcome po sa ating klase. Yan. Sa mga nasa Zoom na nandito and then sa mga nasa YouTube nanonood ng recorded. All right. I hope you're doing well. Let us now start. But I would like to again always review first, just a short review about what we had discussed last time. I think it's been a while na hindi nakapag nagklase wala okay nakapagklase. Ah, Ibang subject pala yun. So yan. Um, so last time we were able to discuss specifically about uh, the two types of uh, economic system. And I mean, there were three, sorry. The first one was the Bretton Woods system, wherein after the World War II, the countries started to come up with a global financial institutions, and then so it was um, yung tinatawag nating IMF, yun, yung World Bank, kasi yung IMF, International Monetary Fund, tsaka yung World Bank or tinatawag dating International Bank for Reconstruction and Development or IBRD. So, yun yung nagawa ng Bretton Woods system after the World War. I think not after the World War but oh, yung patapos na yung World War II, 1944. Bretton Woods system was inaugurated in 1944. And then yung Bretton Woods system, yun nga, we had I was able to share with you that they started the idea of the father of macroeconomics, which is John Maynard Keynes. Ayan. So, ang idea ni Keynes, or yung tinatawag nating Keynesianism, is that in layman's term, we just have to spend a lot of money. The government should spend money or we have to circulate the money kaysa sa nakatambak lang dyan. Sabi niya, you have to spend the money para sa pagpatayo ng infrastructure. And then kung merong mga infrastructure, that means um, you can ask, uh, you can hire more workers. And then it will eventually helps the economy. Yun. So, ganun yung idea ng Keynesianism. Kailangan mong paikutin ang pera sa bansa, within the country. So, yun. And also, noong 1947, merong sinasabi nating GATT. Ibig sabihin ng GATT, and then I have also shared with you, it is a general agreement on tariff and trade. Basically, meron silang uh, common tariff na pag-uusapan na kung saan agree sa iba't ibang bansa. So, yun. So, ang purpose ng GATT was to reduce, of course, to reduce tariff and other hindrances na tinatawag nating free trade. Ayun. Okay, so, and then I also tackle about after the Bretton Woods system, kung saan in-establish yung World Bank tsaka IMF. And after ng Keynesianism, I also shared with you about neoliberalism. So there were two types of economic system, okay, na in-explain ko last time, Keynesianism tsaka neoliberalism. Ang neoliberalism again is it's about the power of controlling the economy, like the money and other institutions was given to the private sectors. So yun yung neoliberalism na hindi na ang gobyerno ang namamalakad kundi ang mga private sectors. Binibigay na sa mga private sectors ang mga institutions. Yun. So ang pinaka fundamentals when you talk about neoliberalism is yung free trade na tinatawag or free market where the private sectors can come up on their own, like magkano ang price nito, sila nang bahala. So yun. Which nga yun ang napag-usapan natin that it's not also good kasi gaya ng nangyari sa Russia where um, the private sectors was given the opportunity to handle the government institutions, but they were able to develop yung mga tawag nito, masyado na nagkaroon ng monopoly, yun, which is not good. Yeah. So now we will continue about neoliberalism. And this is about the global financial crisis and the challenge to neoliberalism. So I have mentioned kanina about Russia. And Russia's case was one of the example of how of yung sinasabing shock therapy na sinasabi ng neoliberalism that did not lead to the ideal outcomes predicted by economists. That they believe that who believe that um, about the free markets. So and then pag-usapan din natin dito yung nangyari sa the Great Recession noong 2008. And ang malaking pagbagsak ng ekonomiya noong 2008. Pagbagsak ng ekonomiya ng Russia ay ng America which affects other countries as well, such as Greece and other countries. Okay. So yan, global financial crisis and the challenge to neoliberalism. So neoliberalism came under significant strain during the global financial crisis of 2007 2008. So yan. It is during the time when the world experienced the greatest economic downturn since nangyari yung Great Depression noong 1930. So the last time na nagkaroon ng malaking downfall ng economy is noong 1930s. At ang sumunod is yung nung 2008 or 2007, 2008. Yung year na yan, tinatawag din siyang yung nangyari na yan, tinatawag din siyang the Great Recession. So, so in their attempt to promote the free market, government authorities failed to regulate bad investment occurring in the US housing market. So, pag sinasabi kasi nating neoliberalism, they are promoting free market. Again, pag sinasabi nating free market, yung mga agencies, mga industries, bangko, mga insurance company, pwede silang magtaas, baba ng mga rates, mga interest, pwede silang magtaas ng mga presyo, anything that they want to do as long as merong mga as long as nagkakaunawaan sila. So that is free market. It's not under the government, but they can they have the power, control. Yun. So they're promoting yung neoliberalism again. They're promoting yung tinatawag nating free market. However, the government authorities failed to regulate bad investment occurring in the US housing market. So, ang nangyari sa US noong 2000, before 2007 or 2008, may tinatawag sila kasi silang mortgage. Yung mortgage na yan, marami yan sa US. When I was in America, halos lahat ng bahay nila doon, mortgage. Ibig sabihin, niloloan nila sa bangko. Niloloan nila sa, niloloan nila sa bangko. Inutang nila sa bangko. Yun yun, binabayaran nila yun every month around $10,000. 10 above $10,000. Ano yun? Nung magkakabahay sila, utang yun. Tapos binabayaran nila. Ganun ang halos lahat ng ano dun sa Amerika. Yan, US housing. So, kasi nagtitake advantage ang mga tao na tinatawag na cheap housing loans. So, merong promotion na ganun. So, ang nangyari is, ang bangko din, take advantage sila, nagpapa-loan sila ng bahay na ang mga taong yun, ang mga Americans na yun, hirap ding magbayad. Pero ginawa nila yun kahit alam nilang mahirapang magbayad yung mga pamilya na yun. It's because nang naniniwala sila na kahit hindi sila makabayad, kahit hindi sila makabayad, pwede nilang kunin yung bahay na yun at ibenta ulit ng mas malaki. So meron pa rin silang profit doon na makuha. Yun ang nangyari sa mga bangko doon. Yun ang ginawa ng mga bangko doon. So, kung totoo kasi hindi talaga maganda. Parang nagtitake advantage ka sila. So yun. Kasi, ayun. So Americans, they began building houses that is even beyond their financial capacities. Yun. So, yun. Kinukuha ng mga bangko yung mga bahay na yun pag hindi nila mabayaran. Kinukuha nila ulit. Tapos, ginawa nilang MB. So, since there was so much surplus money circulating, the demand for MBSS increased as investors clamored for more investment opportunities. Yun. Yung mga investors din, gusto din nilang sinabihan nila yung bangko, pautang ka lang ng pautang. And I will buy this loans and then as a share. Yun yung share na tinatawag. So may share yung mga investors. So, ang bangko din naman, pautang man din pautang, papatayo ng bahay, nagpapaloan sa mga Americans. Yan. So, yun ang tinatawag nating MBBS. Ibig sabihin ng MBBS, mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities. Yun, MBBS. So, ayan. I hope clear sa atin. Yun. Nagpapautang, nagpapautang sila ng bahay, nagpapaloan sila ng bahay, pero ang mga taong yun, mga Americans na hindi nakakabayad, kinukuha nila, tapos ibenta na ulit ng malaki. Yung ano na yun, yung benta na ulit ng malaki, may kita pa sila. Yun ang iniisip nila. Okay? Yun ang iniisip na to make money. And then, tataasan ng interest. So, ayun, ang bangko, pautang ng pautang, magpapatayo ng bahay, patayo ng bahay, tapos pautang ng pautang. Yun. So, ito. So financial experts wrongly assume that even if many of the borrowers were individuals and families who would struggle to pay, a majority would not default. Mm. Moreover, banks thought that since there were so many mortgages in just one MBS or mortgage bank uh, securities. So, moreover, banks thought that since there were so many mortgages in just one MBS, a few failures would not ruin the entirety of the investment. Yun ang akala nila. Yan. Banks also assumed that housing prices would continue to increase. Kasi ganun ang ano ba, di ba? Ganun yung ano tawag nito? Real estate na business. So, technically, that's real estate yung ginagawa ng bago. Yan. Houses. Selling houses in the higher price. Habang tumatagal yung lupa, mamahal na mamahal. Ayun. So they assumed that housing prices would continue to increase. Therefore, even if homeowners defaulted on their loans, these banks could simply reacquire the homes and sell them at a higher price, turning a profit. Ito yung sinabi ko kanina. So kahit hindi makabayad yung mga taong umutang sa kanila, ganun yung business ng bangko. Yun. Ayun. Ano yan? Ang mga insurance din kasi, ang ginagawa is yung mga insurance ang nagbaback up sa mga hindi nakakabayad. Ngayon, pag i-back up na insurance yan, delikado din yung insurance. Okay. So, yun. So, they think that, yun, may profit pa rin sila. So, kaya, gawa lang sila ng gawa ng bahay. Yun. However, sometime in 2007, home prices stopped increasing as supply caught up with demand. Ayun na. Moreover, it slowly became apparent that families could not pay off their loans. Yun. Nag-stop, since mas marami ang supply kaysa sa demand, ibig sabihin, mumura yung bahay. Hindi siya magmahal, mumura. So, and then, obvious na rin that time ng iba, binili nila ng $500,000. Tapos ang babaya ng tapos biglang naging $250 na lang ang benta ng bangko. So bumaba nga kasi nga marami ang supply, konti lang yung demand, bababa talaga yung presyo. So yung iba, benta na lang nila yung bahay. Tapos para pambayad dun sa binili na dating 500,000. Ganun. So, ang point dito is that um, yung mga bahay na hindi nagamit, ibebenta na siya ng mura. Pag ibebenta siya ng mura, ibig sabihin, ano yun, pabagsak yung ano doon, um, financial status ng bangko. It's a big thing in America about housing. So, babagsak yung economy ng America for sure. And so, this realization triggers the rapid reselling of MBSS. Kaya binenta nila ng kadami-dami ng bahay, binenta na nila ng mabilisan. Kasi, kung hindi nila ibenta ng mabilisan, hanggang sa magiging oh, bababa at bababa ang presyo. So, this realization triggered the rapid selling of MBSS or yan, mortgage-backed security as banks and investors tried to get rid of their bad investments. This dangerous cycle reached a tipping point in September 2008 when major investment banks like Lehman Brothers collapse, thereby depleting major investments. So yun, dito sumabog ang ekonomiya ng US. Dahil sa magawa ng bahay, hindi nakabayad yung mga yung utang. Akala nila tataas ang price. Bababa pala kasi hindi na kasi dumami ang supply na bahay pero kunti na lang ang bibili kasi mahal. So, hanggang sa wala nang bibili, ibenta na lang nila ng mura. Yun. Bagsak talaga ang ekonomiya. Ayun. So some of the investors were uh, declined and some um, collapse. Yun, yun nga, na bankrupt. Ang nangyari kasi is, if it's bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng United States, marami kasing investors, especially mga foreign investors uh, sa Amerika. Mga foreign, of course, foreign governments, corporations, or mga individuals na nag-invest dun sa Amerika. Kasi nga, yun nga, di ba? Mataas ang ekonomiya ng Amerika. But nung bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng Amerika, bagsak din yung mga investors. So, yung ibang country na nag-invest doon, automatically babagsak din yung ekonomiya nila. So, ano, um, this series of bankruptcy, yan ang tinatawag nating multiplier effect. Yan. This multiplier effect ripples across the world. Yan. For example, sa Iceland. Sa Iceland kasi nakadepende yung uh, ang bangko nila nakadepende sa foreign capital. So, when the United States uh, economy bankrupt, also Iceland's economy crisis hit them. So they were not able to refinance their loans. Kaya ang nangyari, yung mga top commercials ng uh, Iceland banks, they defaulted. So, kaya kaya yung ano ngayon sa Iceland is that yung utang nila, I think nabayaran na ba ngayon? I'm not very sure, but nagiging 7 times yung utang nila. It's because of the bankruptcy. So, until now, countries like Spain and Greece are heavily indebted, almost like third world countries. And debt relief has come at a high price. Yan, may mga utang na sila dahil dun. Greece in particular has been forced by Germany and International Monetary Fund to cut back on its social and public spending, affecting services like pensions, healthcare, and various forms of social security. These cuts have been felt most acutely by the poor. Yun, ang gagawin kasi is you have to really cut the spending, public spending. Yun. Kasi wala nang pera. So, pag walang pera, you have to cut the spending. Ang mamblema yan is yung mga mahirap. Yan. Na walang pera, na kung saan nakapende lang sa pension, sa healthcare, sa SSS, yun, Social Security. Yun. Ayan. And of course, the reduction in government spending, dito din bababa ang ekonomiya, tapos tataas din yung percent ng unemployment. So, grabing problema yan. So, grabing problema yan. I think we were affected also, of course. 2000. Okay. Yeah, mababa yung economy natin dati. Yes. Next, pero itong nangyari sa ano sa United States kasi is naka-recover sila easily. Kasi itong neoliberalism kasi ginamit nila, di ba? Ngayon, I mean ngayon. I mean nung nagkaroon ng Great Recession or pagbagsak ng ekonomiya noong 2008. Ang ginamit kasi nila that time is neoliberalism. So, ang neoliberalism again is ang 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 nagkokontrol sa mga bagay-bagay about economy is yung mga private sectors, gaya ng bangko. So, yun ang problema ng neoliberalism. Pag lumalaki yung ulo ng nasa bangko, nasa mga insurance company, the different institutions, kaya nilang mag-produce ng maraming product anytime, kaya nilang, para basta lang makapag-profit sila. Pero hindi nila iniisip kung anong magiging resulta sa ekonomiya ng buong bansa. Yan ang problema ng neoliberalism. Yumayaman sila, pero bumabagsak ang ekonomiya ng isang bansa. Yan. So, yun na nga yung nangyari, 2008. Sumabog yung ekonomiya. But relatively quickly, uh, United States recovered easily. Kasi ang ginamit ng United States, nung nanalo si Barack Obama, first month ni Barack Obama, ang ginamit niyang economic system is yung Keynesianism, Keynes system. Ano nga yung Keynesian style? You have to spend the money and spend the money in infrastructures and anything that could produce lots of money. Yeah. More money, more jobs, more money. Yun. And ganun din ginawa ng ibang countries. Yeah. Actually, we've tried that one. Um, Although, ang problema lang ng Keynesianism is that we have to be careful kasi if we borrow too much money and then pag walang ma-produce na, walang maibabalik, bagsak talaga. Darating ang time na maraming infrastructures pero babagsak ang ekonomiya pa rin kasi may mga utang pa rin. But then kung meron kasi infrastructures, continuous yung ano dun, yung employment. That's a good thing. So hindi masyadong ano yung Keynesianism. Alright. So yan ang ginagamit mostly ng mga countries ngayon, yung Keynesianism. Although meron pa rin neoliberalism. Kaya gaya sa atin, meron namin kasi talagang neoliberalism, mga free markets sa mga mabababang level ng ekonomiya. Microeconomics. Yun. So, kung ah, ang, ang, nung bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng America, by the way, is ang ginawa ng ibang pangit ang ginawa ng ibang country. Kasi sa Europe, nung nag-continue ang economic crisis, um, naka-apekto yun siya sa political, uh, sa politics. So, pag naka-apekto siya sa politics, para hindi masira ang pangalan ng mga polit- politician dahil bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng isang country, ang ginagawa nila is ibiniblame nila ang mga ang ibang tao, yung mga yung iba, yung mga immigrants, ganun, hindi sila daw yung reason. So, which is hindi, negative talaga siya, of course. Kasi, dahil doon, nagkaroon ng mga movements, nagkaroon ng mga resentment ng ibang tao, nagkaroon ng welga, mga hatred, racism, ganun. Yan. Anyway, intindihan natin later on. Yun ang ginagawa ng ibang countries such as Europe. They are trying to find a way to blame someone, to blame somebody para maiwasan silang masisi if the dahil sa decline ng economy. Ayun. Which is not good. Ito pag-usapan naman to later following weeks. Yan. So that's the problem with, if I will conclude about the financial crisis and challenge to neoliberalism is that it happens when we talk about economy, hindi talaga stable ang economy. Ang gagawin lang doon is there should be an equilibrium of um, economic system na kung saan trying to balance the situation. Kunyari, pag hindi maiwasan ang inflation actually. Inflation is, pag tumaas ang inflation, kailangan, normal talaga yan, pero hindi dapat masyadong mataas. You know? So the point is, either neoliberalism or Keynesianism ang gagamitin. Either sa dalawa, pwede. Pwede sa dalawa. Pwede yan. Kailangan lang magaling ang mga economists sa isang bansa. Sa atin, kasi if you talk about Philippines kasi, um, although ang president yung nagde-decide about things, but yung mga economists, sila yung nagbibigay ng advice sa president. Kasi the president itself doesn't know about, I mean, he knows, but yung mga ano talaga, may alam talaga sa ekonomiya, yung mga economists na they are advising the president na ito ang dapat gawin para maiwasan ang pagbagsak ng ekonomiya natin. Mr. President, pwede natin gawin to. Ang mga nag-advise niyan is, hindi talaga yung president ang nag-iisip. Nag-iisip yung mga economists, and then depende lang sa presidente if they will use this kind of economic system. So, yan. So, either neoliberalism or Keynesianism. Yan. Pero if we reason out from our point of view as a member, ganda yung may principle. So, either neoliberalism or Keynesianism. Pero pag may principle ka, I think, hindi mo kailangang i-corrupt yung pera, kailangan mo hindi lang laging profit, but hindi lang pag nagawa ng business, hindi lang para sa profit sa sarili mo. Kasi yan nangyari sa neoliberalism, makasarili na. But you have to make a business, establish a business, not for the profit itself. Of course, kailangan may profit, given na yun. But also for the benefit of the common good. Yun. For the benefit of general. Yan. So yan. Yep. Now let's talk about economic globalization. Okay. Let's talk about economic globalization today. Nowadays, I think when we talk about economic globalization, it started from the second half of the 20th century. So let's think about that one. Second half of the 20th century until now, the present. Although yung libro, 2018, okay, not bad. Established 2018. Okay. So, economic globalization today, ano bang nangyari sa ekonomiya natin ngayon? Yan. Okay ba yung Pilipinas? Okay ba yung world economy natin ngayon? Okay ba yung GDP? I think na-mention ko na last time na maganda ang ekonomiya natin. Right? I think I forgot the percentage, but I've shown you the graph, our economic percentage. I'll show you again kung andito ba yun. Wala pala. Okay. Wala. So, the- I mean, yung ekonomiya ng Pilipinas actually lumago ngayon. One of the main factors is yung mga industry. Industry. I'll check again later. And anyway, we develop actually. Although hindi ganun ka ano. And even right now, we are one of the top fastest economy uh, in Southeast Asia. Isa doon yung Vietnam and Taiwan and other some Asian countries. Yeah. So it's good. It's a good news. Yeah. So economic globalization today. Yeah. The global financial crisis will take decades to resolve. That's actually true. Hindi siya ano, hindi siya hindi siya 6 na taon na parang pang presidente lang. Kasi we blame the president, right? Oh, ano, dahil kay ano, ang baba ng ekonomiya natin. Hindi. Kasi yung problema na yun na pagbagsak ng ekonomiya, dati pa yan ng ibang presidente or dati pa yan na hindi nare-resolve hanggang ngayon. Kaya yung mga utang na yan, um, padagdag ng padagdag. So we shouldn't blame the president itself agad-agad na naging ganun yung ekonomiya ng Pilipinas dahil kay Duterte, dahil kay Marcos. No, it takes decades actually. Problema na yung trillion dollars na yun. Ano yan? Um, tawag ito, 10 taon yan. Sa loob yan ng 10 taon. Eh, ang presidente, 6 years lang. Okay? So, and even the president cannot solve the economic problem itself. Ano yun siya? Long-term problem yun siya that needs long-term solution. So the solutions proposed by certain nationalists and leftist groups of longer closing national economies to world trade, however, will no work. Of course, it will never work. The world has become too integrated. If you will isolate our country from other countries, the economy will decline. Why? One of the example is North Korea. Ang North Korea, wala naman siya. Of course, pwede sa China. Yung ano nila, trading. But limited. That is why, kinama yung ekonomiya ng North Korea. Yun. Iba pa rin pag you are open to trades, world trade. So it will never work if we will close our national economies to world trade. We always have to integrate others. We always have to connect our country to other countries. So whatever one's opinion about Washington consensus is, it is undeniable that some form of international trade remains essential for countries to develop in the contemporary world. Especially sa panahon ngayon that world trade is just a second, actually. you can you can have world trade, okay. Example ng world trade. Example, bili ka lang ng product online na Amazon. Yung Amazon galing sa ano yun. Product sa Amerika, bili ka sa Amazon, gamit ang Amazon. Darating na sa bahay mo for within a week or 2 weeks, ganun. So, you are already having trade using internet. So that's what we're having right now. In the contemporary world we are studying right now, mas mabilis ang ekonomiya. Okay? International trading. And meron na tayong ano yun, yung, yung bitcoins, mga ganun. Right? Yes. So exports, not just the local selling of goods and services, make national economies grow at present. In the past, those that benefited the most from free trade were the advanced nations that were producing and selling industrial uh, and agricultural goods. Yun. So, ang pag-export din, importante. Export ng mga produkto. Kung anong meron tayong marami dito, pwede natin i-export yan na kung saan we made profits and could help our economy develop and mabayaran yung mga utang. So, exports. Kaya nag-export ang iba't ibang country. And of course, hindi, kailangan talaga natin mag-export kasi we might have a surplus with this kind of product. Gano'n. Pero wag yung mag-export, wag yung mag-import tayo kung saan meron naman tayong, kanyari, bigas. Meron naman tayong bigas, ba't tayo mag-import? It's not good also. Yung iba kasi nag-import kasi kinukurap yung bigas natin, di ba? Tinatago nila. Ay, naku. Yung marami yung news sa TV na kung saan ah, tinatago nila yung bigas. Tapos pag nagmahal na yung bigas, saka na nila um, ilalabas yung bigas. So, ang tendency is that other people wanted to import rice from other countries kasi mas mura din yun. Kaya ang ginagawa ng iba, nag-i-import sila sa ibang country. Which is, ang dapat gawin is, we have to use our own product as much as possible. Kung ano yung sobra natin, yun ang dapat i-export natin. Yun. Kung anong wala tayo, yun ang dapat i-import. Pero kung ano, yung nangyari, kasi meron tayong bigas, tapos mag-import pa tayo ng bigas. What? Yun. So, yan. Yung exporting kasi, it really benefits sa economy, especially sa free trade nations. Yeah. So the United States, Japan, and the member countries of the European Union were responsible for 65% of global exports, while the developing countries only accounted for 29%. Wow. 65% of global export galing sa US, Japan, and European countries. 65%. Kaya yung mga country na to, ano, they are developed countries, right? Yeah. Pero, actually, lumalaban din yung Pilipinas. So, okay. So, sabi dito, when more countries open up their economies to take advantage of increased free trade. So, yung free trade, again, ano nga to? This is actually neoliberalism. Okay? The free trade. So, when more countries open up their economies to take advantage of increased free trade, the shares of the percentage began to change. Nung start na tayo mag-export, yun. By 2011, developing countries like the Philippines, India, China, Argentina, and Brazil accounted for 51% of global exports. Wow. That's good. Of course, meron India at China kasi ito. Malaking countries din. Brazil. No? But we were one of these producers for free trade. 51% of global exports. While the share of advanced nations, including the United States, had gone down to 45%. Yun. Kasi nagsimula lang mag-free trade. Maganda yung mag-export din talaga. Just give me a second po. Wait lang po. Alright, okay pa ba tayo dyan? So, yung nandito. Sige. Welcome Sir Julius and Milagros. So, makinig lang tayo, no? Actually, we're talking about economy. Medyo, um, I'm trying to explain this one in a simple way, in layman's term. So, it's kind of complicated kasi. When you talk about economy, it's kind of complicated. But I'm trying to, yun, as simple as possible. Yun. Later I will conclude din naman then para mas klaro. At saka sa mga nanonood sa YouTube, yun. May idea tayo about economy, global economy. And somehow we can help. Okay, lagi naman tayo nakatulong kasi we're buying products. So, through taxes, nakatulong tayo. All right. So again, we were one of the uh, global exports with a share of 51% among the countries. And yes, the World Trade Organization led reduction of trade barriers known as trade liberalization. O meron silang trade liberalization. Okay? It has profoundly altered the dynamics of the global economy. Merong downside dito eh. Kasi it's the reduction of trade barriers. Oh, okay naman siya. But I think there is a downside with this one. Yeah. Okay, let's study more. In the recent decades, partly as a result of these increased exports, economic globalization has ushered in an unprecedented spike in global growth rates. Mm. So dahil sa mga exports ba? Yun. Pag-export ng mga produkto. Okay? According to the IMF or International Monetary Fund, the global per capita GDP, globe, okay, world GDP, all right, rose over fivefold in the second half of the 20th century. Whoa, this over fivefold. Nice. Okay, so it's developing. Uh, it was this growth that created the large Asian economies like Japan, China, Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Oh, even Korea, because 1960s. So in the second half of 20th century. Wow. Nagboom ang Korea for only 60 years, right? So Singapore also became one of the third world country na kung saan. I see. That's why. Kaya itong yung Japan, China, Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore, they're one of the top countries right now. Because during those times, even before, meron na, I mean, they were using what we call the exports na tinatawag, exporting products. I see. Pero again, not all the time we have to export the product, okay? There's actually a limit. I mean, there should be a control of products kung ilan yung ilalabas at yung papasok. Yun. So, and yet, sabi nito, economic globalization remains an even process with some countries, corporations, and individuals benefiting a lot more than others. Yun lang. Hindi ata tayo naka-benefit dito. So, okay. Hindi ata na naka-benefit. So, the series of trade talks under the World Trade Organization have led to unprecedented reduction in tariffs and other trade barriers. But these processes have often been unfair. That's the downside. May mga unfair din pala. Yeah. Unfair na nasa World Trade Organization. Siyempre, usually ganun naman talaga pag walang principle. Eh, pag may principle, at least hindi masyado. Oo, meron pa rin, pero hindi masyado, siguro. So, yan. I mean, because that's the nature. That's the nature of human beings, and that's the nature of each country na kung saan, ano yan, kompetisyon. Kailangan kami ang mas maka-benefit nito. Kailangan kami ang mas maraming profit. Kailangan mas aangat kami sa mga bansang ito. Ganon yan, nagiging selfish. So, hindi na bago to siguro. Hindi na bago yung pagiging unfair. Okay? Sa nangyayari dito sa World Trade Organization. Hindi bago, but it's not good. Okay? Yun. So, ang iba, umaangat ang ekonomiya, ang iba bumabagsak. Because they are using the unfair process. Ayan. Kasi merong tinatawag na ano kasi, protectionist. Yung protectionist kasi sila yung mga country, meron silang ganitong bagay. And they have to control the products na ipalalabas nila. Kunyari, oil. Hindi lahat ilalabas nila yan. Yan ang kinokontrol nila ang oil. Kasi sila lang ang merong ganito. And then they will boom their economy if tataasan nila ng presyo. So they have the control. So, yun ang natawag ng mga protectionist ng mga country. Okay, it's good for them, but it's not good for others. Yeah, other countries. Yun ang mangyayari pag sariling bansa lang yung inisip. Yeah. Okay. So, first, developed countries are often protectionist. Especially, yun nga, protectionist yung sinasabi ko. Ano yun sila? Mga developed countries, mga protectionist na sila. They're often protectionist. As they repeatedly refuse to lift policies that safeguard their primary products that could otherwise be overwhelmed by imports from developing world. Yan, example dito, the best example of this double standard is Japan's determined refusal to allow rice imports into the country to protect its farming sector. Ito yung sabi, I think na-mention to ni Sir Roy. yung, ano, sagrado. Yeah. Japan's justification is that rice is sacred. Ultimately, its economic muscle as the third largest economy that allows it to resist pressures to open its agricultural sector. Yun. Maraming rice sa Japan. Ngayon, hindi yan sila nag-import ng rice. Yun nga, sabi ni Sir Roy. Pwede sila mag-import pero ginagamit nila yung rice na yun. They turn it into other products. Pero yung rice talaga na sa kanila lang yung umiikot. Ano lang ginagamit. Yun. Hindi nila ini-export sa ibang bansa. They refuse to import rights in the country. And Actually, it's good. Ito yung sinasabi nating, tangkilikin ang sariling atin. You know? Yan. So ultimately, its economy, ayan, sagrado ang kanilang rice. Yan. So, ibig sabihin, yung mga protectionist country, they can control their products na hindi pwedeng ilabas ng ganito. Yun. At pwede na, ginagawa. Kasi they have the rights naman kasi sa kanilang country naman yun. Um, the government has their rights. Yun. Magaling lang sila mag ano. Economic muscle. It is its economic muscle as the third largest economy that allows it to resist pressures to open its agricultural sector. Malakas kasi yung Japan, largest economy. Third largest economy. Wow. Kaya kaya nilang, may power silang ganito. Pilipinas kaya, no? Okay. Another one is United States. United States naman, they likewise firstly protects its sugar industry. So, anong ginawa ng United States? They're forcing their consumers and sugar-dependent business to pay higher prices instead of getting cheaper sugar from plantation of Central America. Maganda tong ganito kasi um, instead of bibili ng mura sa ibang bansa, you have to buy the products in your own country, from your own country, para yung taxes na yun, mataas yung mataas yung tax, yung tariff doon. Pero nakakatulong yun sa ekonomiya, actually. Yan. Sa atin din, dapat ganun ang ginawa sa mga bigas. Kaya yung pagmahal ng bigas, actually, nakatutulong yun sa ekonomiya. Ang problema lang, parang nakafocus halos lahat, ay, hindi man, ang, ang tax increase is parang lagi na lang doon sa bigas or sa gasolina. Pwede naman sa iba. But I don't know, right? Why? Why is that? Yan. Okay. So, yan. Ang iba kasi hindi natin naintindihan kung bakit tumataas yung presyo ng bigas, o dahil sa gasolina. Hindi dahil sa gasolina. Dahil yun sa atin na may mga iba nagtatago ng bigas sa ano nila, plantation nila or sa ganito, lugar nila. Yan. Ano yan? Okay. So uh faced with this blatantly protectionist measures from powerful countries and blocs, poorer countries can do very little to make economic globalization more just. Yeah. Trade imbalances, therefore, characterize economic relations between developed and developing countries. So, hindi talaga fair yung kalakalan uh, globally. Hindi fair yung kalakalan sa globally. Kaya yung iba, yung mga mabababang ekonomiya, mahina din sila. Parang parang sunod-sunuran lang kung ano yung nila, uh, final agreement. Okay na lang din. O, ganun. Pero yung mga malalakas na country na kung saan sila ang nag-provide ng uh, especially pag marami kang share economy, malakas din yung mo talaga, bosses. Like Japan, China, United States, Russia, ganun. Right. So, imbalance. Yan ang nangyayari sa ekonomiya ngayon. Yan. Pero in fairness, Nag-develop naman tayo. Ngayon recently, okay. So the beneficiaries of global commerce have been mainly transnational. The beneficiaries of global commerce have been mainly transnational corporations and not governments. Mm. So sa global commerce naman, meron ng mga transnational corporations. Ang mga transnational corporations is yung silang mga company na kunyari, McDonald's, hindi naman sa Pilipinas yan. Pumunta sila sa ano, mga transnational corporations yun sila. Pumunta sila sa Pilipinas mag-invest para to gain profits. Ang mga sasakyan, Hyundai, Honda, they're not from the Philippines. They're from Japan and Korea. They went to Philippines. They came here in the Philippines for investments and to gain profits. Sila yung mga transnational corporations. Okay. So, and they are the ones who benefited more than the government. Actually, mas naka-benefit pa sila yung mga private sectors na yan or transnational corporations. Sila pa yung naka-benefit sa Pilipinas kaysa sa gobyerno. So, and like any other business, these transnational corporations are concerned more with profits. Yun, profits done with assisting the social programs of the government hosting them. Kasi ang iniisip nila is investment. Iniisip nila pera. Pag mag-invest ako dito, kailangan babalik ang pera, lalago ang pera nila. Hindi dahil tutulong sila sa Pilipinas. Yun ang hindi maganda. They are more concerned of the profits than helping the hosting country. Yeah. Again and again, yun ang nangyayari if you don't have the living for the sake of others mind. All right. Ano yun? In our point of view, okay. In my point of view. So host countries in turn, ginawa nila, they lose tax loss, which prevents wages from rising, while sacrificing social and environmental programs that protect them, their privileged members of their societies. Yeah. They lose in tax loss. Anyway, ang reason nila is to prevent wages from rising. Okay. But my downside, it's sacrificing the social and environmental programs. We are on the, okay, fifth to the last slide. Ayan. Sa panahon natin ngayon, ang mga naka-benefit talaga is yung mga transnational corporations. Okay? Hindi na gobyerno. Napunta na sa mga private sector. But they're not private sector. They are private, but they are international. Mas malala yung mga local. Okay. So the term race to the bottom refers to the countries lowering their labor standard, including the protection of workers' interests, to lure in foreign investors seeking high profit margins at the lowest cost possible. I think ginagawa ito ng Pilipinas ngayon. I think yung mga yung ginagawa ng presidente to go to other countries and talk about business. He is asking investors to go to the Philippines and invest. Yeah, we are racing to the bottom, okay? Let's race to the bottom. We're lowering our standards. But I think it might help naman in the future pag maraming investors sa Pilipinas. Economic our industries will develop, it might probably, of course, help our economy. So it's good actually. But parang ano lang, we are racing to the bottom. Government weakens environmental laws to attract investors, creating fatal consequences on their ecological balance and depleting them for their finite resources like oil, coal, and minerals. So, yun, ang problema din pag may mga investors sa ating bansa, ayun, ang tendency is, nisira nila yung mga, ano, yung environment natin. Kasi, parang makapagpatayo ng mga malaking building, kailangang tanggalin yung bundok nito para pang patayo ng building, mga buhangin, grava. So, it weakens our environmental laws. Na bawal ang ganito, pero meron namang nagmimina ng mga lupa dito. Ganun. So, that means there's an ecological uh, imbalance. Yan. When we talk about environment. Yan. Yan ang downside kung may mga investors. Kasi di maiwasan talaga eh. Katulad kasi dati makita naman natin marami pang puno. Ngayon sa Maynila, halos wala lang puno kasi marami nang pinapatay ng building. Yeah. So we're almost finished. Sabi dito, localizing the material. Imports is good actually. I mean, export is good. But not all the time. So, dito na tayo sa localizing the material. We're almost there. Localizing the material. We will be studying about the losses of the Philippine government, especially the agriculture sectors. What happened? Yeah. During 1993, from 1993 to 1997, and the year 2000s. You know. Okay. Many Philippine industries were devastated by unfair trade deals under the GATT. So, yung GATT, yung tariff. General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. Yun yung GATT. So, we were ones of the who experienced the unfair trade deals with GATT and eventually the World Trade Organization. So, one sector that was particularly affected was Philippine agriculture. So, yung Philippine agriculture, isa sa mga naapektuhan. According to Walden Bello and the team of researchers focused on the Global South, the U.S. used its power under the GATT system to prevent Philippine importers from purchasing Philippine poultry and pork even as it sold meat to the Philippines. So yun, ginagamit ng US ang kanilang kapangyarihan para yung mga maiwasan ng mga importers para magbibili sa atin ng poultry and pork. Yan. So ginagamit nila yung GATT system. General agreement, but it's not general, it's unfair agreement between the countries. So although the Philippines expected to make up losses in sectors like meat with grains, in areas such as coconut products, no significant change was realized. In 1993, coconut exports amounted to 1.9 billion. Okay, and after a slight increase to 2.3 billion in 1997. And it returned to 1.9 billion in 2000. Most strikingly, Bello and Company noted that the Philippines became a net importer under the GATT. Net food importer under the GATT. Hmm. Bakit naging importer? Importer na tayo. Dapat exporter. So in 1993, the country had an agricultural trade surplus of, wow, surplus $292 million. It had a deficit of 764 million in 1997 and 794 million in 2002. Wow. It's, yeah. Dahil lang sa uh, unfair trades na ginagawa ng World Trade Organization. Yeah. In conclusion, we are in conclusion na po. So, international wait, before I will conclude. So again, the economic globalization right now, what is happening right now is that nakikita natin that um, we are developing actually. And isa sa natutunan natin is yung pag-export ng mga product, especially nung second half of the 20th century, na kung saan nakapaglago ng ekonomiya ng iba't ibang bansa, especially Japan, United States, ano pa yun, Singapore, Korea. So, it's because of this exports na tinatawag. And it is still happening right now. And we are not only doing export, also imports. So, both ways. And naintindihan natin that na mas nagkakaroon ng more benefits ang mga transnational corporations kaysa sa gobyerno. Na dapat kailangan matulungan mo rin yung gobyerno kung saan ka nag-invest. Pero hindi ganun ang nangyari. But anyway, in the Philippines, good thing again that we are in the developing countries. Okay. We're one of the developing countries right now. So international economic integration is a central tenet of globalization. Yes, in fact, it is so crucial to the process that many writers and commentators confuse this integration for the entirety of globalization. Yeah. As a reminder, economics is just one window into the phenomenon of globalization. It is not the entire thing. So when we talk about globalization, isa na doon yung international economic integration. International economic integration, simply speaking, yung mga world trade. Yun. But, sabi nga dito, it is just one window into the phenomenon of globalization. Marami pang iba. Ang ekonomiya, hindi lang siya ang dahilan ng pagkakaroon ng globalization. Pero marami pang iba. Nevertheless, sabi dito, much of globalization is anchored changes in the economy. Mostly lang. Most of the globalization na nangyayari ng dahil sa ekonomiya, sa international economic integration. So, global culture, for example, is facilitated by trade. Filipinos would not be as aware of American culture if not for the trade that allows local to watch American movies, listen to American music, and consume American products. So, meron tayong global culture na may trade pa rin. Yun nga, bibili ka lang ng movie sa Netflix. That's already trading actually. Bibili ka ng movie, ah, manood ka ng movie sa Netflix, bibili ka, di ba? Magbabayad ka ng ano, monthly. Yun. That's already a trade. That's a global culture trade. Okay? Not just of course, yun nga, pag bibili ka rin, you are supporting the economy also. Right? So kaya nga, much of the globalization is anchored mostly sa economy. Yan. So importante talaga ang international economic integration sa globalization. Last slide. The globalization of politics is likewise largely contingent on trade relations. This and the globalization of politics is likewise largely contingent on trade relations. These days, many events of foreign affairs are conducted to cement trading relations between and among states. Sa panahon ngayon kasi, ah, medyo political na lahat ng nangyayari. Kahit sa trading, even the trading is decided by the president. I mean, which country? Kanino pwede mag-trade? Ang country pwedeng mag-invest? Ang country pwedeng puntahan na mag-invest sa country mo? Ganun. So, more on the decision making that is happening in a country is very political. That's why the globalization of politics is really uh, politics affects the globalization, affects also the economic growth of a nation or a state. Yun. Mga foreign affairs, it is mostly decided by politicians, the one who rule the the nation. Yun. Because they are in power, they are on top. So given the stakes involved in economic globalization, it is perennially important to ask how this system can be made more just. Mm. Although some elements of global free trade can be scaled back, policies cannot do away with its whole. International policymakers therefore should strive to think of ways to make trading deals fairer. Government must also continue to devise ways of cushioning the most damaging effects of economic globalization while ensuring that its benefits accrue for everyone. Yun. So, when we talk about economic globalization, para ba sa lahat ng benefits? Yun. Kaya yung international policy makers, dapat, if they make policies, dapat, it's for the benefit of every country. Para wala na yung unfair, and then, kung sino yung powerful, sila na yung tataas. So, that is the reality that is happening globally. And, hindi, hindi kasi normal lang kasi sa atin. It's not new. So, pag may ganitong situation, it's not new. It's an old stories already that there is an unfair trading, an unfair treat to everyone. So, because in our point of view, they are fallen. So, sa atin yun. Okay. Siguro yung iba hindi naman. So, alright, so, oops. So, this is, anyway, napindot ko na yung picture na yun, but, ayan. Itong picture na to, this is one of the example of the globalization today. Ito. The economic globalization today. Internet. Yeah. We can fast track the economy because of the internet and many. So I think that is the end of the topic. Let's have a 5 minutes break muna. Not 5 minutes. Just 1 minute. All right. Okay. Anything that you'd like to say something um, from anybody? Or just, okay. Si Sir Roy kasi, ano, tulog kasi wala pa daw siyang tulog. Galing siya sa work. Panggabi na. Wala pa siyang tulog. Wala kanina. Alright. So if wala tayong comments and um, additional inputs, then we can end na po actually. Alright. So I would like to, I just wanted to add more about this one. Ano yung, just wait a second. So about the economic globalization today. Of course, we always have to check. We always have to go back of why are we studying this economic globalization today? And as a religious educator, as a religious student, yeah. So then again, it is economic globalization is part of our life, whether we are religious or not. And the thing is, we have to have a knowledge about what is going on with our economy right now. Somehow we are not, ignorant, especially if we teach spirituality, but not only actually about spirituality. I've always mentioned that if we have a broader knowledge, we can share today to our participants, to our members, with a broader sense of knowledge, all about not just all about spirituality, but also about the reality of the world. And in that way, kasi if you are a religious leader and if you know about economy, that's actually, that's probably that's that is it's some kind of an advantage also. Because we never know, some of our younger brothers and sisters would like to become an economist, and somehow they could help us in business and anything that relates with economic globalization. Yeah, right. So the point is, yeah, it's an advantage for us that we have a broader knowledge, an additional input within us about economy. This is a common knowledge that we have to understand, that maybe in the future we could help Philippines, and we can understand the situation now in the Philippines. Hindi lang puro complain. Hindi lang puro complain, but actually the government are trying their best to establish equilibrium between in the society, between the state, nation and state, and between the state and the church and the society. Okay? Although merong separation between the state and the church, but we are different. So we are we are a religious educator who is engaging with the state. Kasi kailangan ng talagang ganun. Yeah. All right, so I think we will end here. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Ma'am Milagros. See you on Wednesday.
See you po.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sir Julius. Bye-bye.
Bye.